Welcome to C3 in This Together, 30 minutes in our own voice for our series, Disabling Disabilities. Today's topic is an awesome autism mom and her son's God sent barber. Man, I love that. And I want to say it again because that's so amazing. That put a smile on my face. I could see you out there smiling. But again, we're going to talk to an amazing autism mom, and we're going to talk as well to her son's God sent amazing barber. So today we'll hear from someone with a lived experience who's coping, managing, and navigating disabilities and special needs. My hope, of course, throughout this series is that together we would be the generation that creates this awareness that individuals with disabilities and special needs are differently enabled, and that disability does not mean a lack of ability. And that's so important to me that we get that word out, that those who are living with a diagnosis of a disability or special needs, it simply means that they are differently enabled, and that disability does not mean a lack of ability. Today, our guests are Dr. LaQuista Arena, also known, affectionately known as Dr. Lala. She is a best-selling author. She's a speaker, a licensed therapist, and a 21-year Army veteran who served 2 tours of duty in Iraq. She's also the founder of Awesome Mom Society. And of course, we'll hear her story and her journey as an autism mom. But Dr. LaQuista, even before I go forward and um, sharing our amazing guests with us, let me take this time to just pause and say, more than thank you for your service. I want to say to you, thank you for serving. We honor your sacrifice, we honor your story, and we honor your experiences. So thank you so much, Dr. LaQuista.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
I appreciate it so much. And of course, I want to welcome as well Ree. She's an amazing barber at Exposed Men's Barber Studio in Duluth, Georgia. So if you're in that area, make sure you go check her out. In fact, I went out today and made sure I got a cut because I didn't want to show up and not look at least halfway decent. So, my friends, we're so honored that you've joined us for this series, and we're excited about today. Before we dive into our topic, allow me to share some research surrounding neurodevelopmental disorders, more specifically, autism spectrum disorder. Here's what we know from the research, from the statistics. We'll share some more about this. You'll hear a little bit more as we go throughout our time together. But here's some numbers that we want to be familiar with. 1 in 6 US children will have one or more neurodevelopmental disorder. Neurodevelopmental disorders are typically diagnosed by the age of 18. In terms of some of the common examples of neurodevelopmental disorders, we're talking about disorders such as autism spectrum disorder, intellectual disorders or mental disorders, fetal alcohol syndrome, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And we do know from the numbers that symptoms of ADHD typically appear between the ages of 3 and 6. That's the first appearance. In terms of autism, we want to be clear, and we'll share a little bit more about this as we go, is that autism is known as a spectrum disorder. And what that means is because there's a wide variation in terms of type and severity of symptoms. When we talk about symptoms in terms of autism, they're typically apparent in the first 2 years. We do know that, again, based on research and the numbers and the narratives and the anecdotes, that autism affects 1 in 38 boys and 1 in 152 girls. We do know that autism is 4 times more common in boys than girls. So again, just wanted to give you some statistics, some research surrounding our topic today. Also want to wrap up with this by just sharing that we want to be aware of some of the more common recognizable behaviors in terms of autism. Common behaviors such as making little or inconsistent eye contact, responding negatively to touch, There may be repetitive behavior, obsessive routines. By the way, we want to highlight that for many on the autism spectrum, routines are very important, right? So you want to keep to those routines because deviating from that could serve as a trigger for many of those on the autism spectrum. Again, in terms of some of the more common recognizable behaviors, challenges expressing emotions. Some may speak little or not at all. But here's what we want to know. We want to be clear as we wrap up in talking about just some of the research. We do want to make clear that many on the autism spectrum, they have amazing strengths. For some, they're able to learn things in detail. For some, they are very strong visual and auditory learners. And for some, and many, they excel in the math, science, music, and the arts, right? So just wanted to share some thoughts with you, research as we dive into our topic. Well, let's jump right in. Let's start with this first question. Tell us your story, Dr. LaQuista and Reed. Tell us your story and your journey surrounding disabilities and special needs. And let's start with Dr. LaQuista on this. Just tell us your story and your journey um, surrounding disabilities and special needs.
Yeah, so as you mentioned before, I'm a licensed therapist, work in the mental health field for several years now, primarily because I went to the military and had experienced all of these things. And, I kind of kept that part of my life separate from like my family life. So when I got off of active duty around 2017, that was around the time Jackson, who's my son, he was about 2 years old, and I noticed, some of the things he just wasn't hitting as far as milestones. And I didn't, at first, I was kind of thinking, well, I haven't been a parent of a newborn or a toddler in so long, or maybe I'm just forgetting what he should be doing. But it was really a conversation I had with another mom who happened to be a nurse practitioner. She was talking about her now adult kids and how they had been diagnosed with autism kind of late in life. I think they were like 18 and 19 at the time. And she broke down crying. It freaked me out. We were having lunch. She broke down crying, saying she had missed all the signs. And she started naming off stuff. She was like, they were nonverbal and their speech was delayed. She talked about one of her sons being unable to cross, like to tie his shoes, something with crossing and fine motor skills. Like, and as she's kind of like naming off stuff, I'm like checking off lists like in my head, and like these alarms are going off. And so I'm trying to comfort her, but in near panic myself. And so immediately after that lunch, I called my son's pediatrician, made an appointment because I wanted to get him checked out. So they were able to get us in fairly quickly. And during that exam, Jackson was playing with the stethoscope of the doctor. She had like a sticker on it, and he was hyper focused on that thing. Like he wasn't responding to like his name. He was really clingy to me, and she, did like a well exam. And I didn't know anything about possible autism at the time, but she told me, she was like, yeah, it could be a possibility that he meets the criteria for autism spectrum disorder, but we have to send you off for evaluation. So I'm like, okay, great. What is that going to be like? She was like, well, usually it's like a 6-month wait. And I'm like, say what now? Like 6 months? I was just like baffled. I felt lost, but she gave me the sheet for early intervention, telling me that, early intervention is the best way to go. Go ahead, get him enrolled in this program while you wait for your official evaluation. So that's exactly what we did. We were in New Jersey at the time, living on a military post, and his therapist through early intervention, they were coming to the house working with him with speech. OT, just behavioral things. He wasn't talking. I think at the time he was 2 and had 2 words. Definitely some cause for concern, but I was just kind of trusting in these people. And we eventually, after doing some advocating, we were able to move up on that list and tuck him in for the official diagnoses or evaluation through the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And we got that diagnoses back just before his 3rd birthday. And I just remember, kind of being sad. And it wasn't, there was no shame in the diagnoses. It was all of those feelings that that other mom had about missing signs. Am I a good mother? What is the world going to think of my son? Like all of these things like just started coming through, and I was overwhelmed with emotions. I went to my little therapy group on Facebook and I kind of put myself out there and told them that I had been going through this diagnosis with my son, didn't know what to do. And one of the therapists in the group gave me the best advice ever. She said, feel what you need to feel in this moment, but remember it's about your son. Your job is to get him the help that he needs, and it's going to be okay. And I try to always keep that like in the back of my mind. And, I told my mom and some of my family members, and like, especially if you have like old school parents, oh, there's nothing wrong with that baby. He's going to be all right. He's going to do, saying things that they feel like are helpful, which may not be helpful for a mom who's kind of grieving in that time. I'm grieving the life that I thought my son would have, not really fully understanding, even though I'm a licensed therapist with a whole doctorate at this point, like not understanding that he can still have like a full life. So kind of fast forward, to meeting Ree. One of the things with my son is he has sensory processing disorder, which means that some sensory things are just too much for him. So loud noises, certain touch, smells, and getting a haircut became like a nightmare. And so once we moved back to Georgia, I had no one to cut his hair. And I have an older son who restarted cutting his hair. And I call her, she did such a nice job with my oldest son's hair. I asked her one time, I was like, hey, I have this other son. He has autism. He's autistic. So he doesn't like getting haircuts. Would you be okay with cutting his hair? And she was like, oh, I got him. You can bring him. That's okay. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I was like, you don't know my son. Like he's pretty strong. So she was you were at a different shop at the time, but I remember bringing him in, and oh my gosh, I would leave the barber shop. She would cut his hair nice, but I would literally have to hold him and fight. And I would be drenching sweat. He would be drenching sweat. He would be crying. It was just horrible for everybody involved. Like the other patrons in there getting a haircut, whole time Reed just cool as a fan. But I'm like embarrassed. I'm like, why am I, subjecting my son to this? Is it just because I want him to look a way that society wants him to look? Does that mean he's more presentable because he has this disability? And so I really had to wrestle with that for a bit and decide that I wasn't going to get him cuts. For a while, we went quite a long time before we came back, even though Reed continued to cut my oldest son. And then about a year ago, we had this viral moment where Reed was very accommodating to my son, to Jackson. He had grown up a little bit after seeing his brother get his hair cut. He wants to be like his older brother. So I would continue to take him to the barbershop, kind of getting him used to Reed. Like he loved her. He didn't like the haircuts. So when he asked me, he told me he wanted to get a haircut, and I was like, okay, so we're gonna try it. And she's started cutting his hair, and he did really well. So we kind of figured out, okay, for the sensory, we need to be prepared. We need headphones, we need iPads, we need phones, we need snacks, we need all of the things. And this particular day, I forgot every single thing. He was in a bad mood, I was in a bad mood, and he wasn't having it. And she just did her thing, and I just happened to capture it on film and posted it. So yeah, that's how most people found out my son was autistic. And so many parents came to me after that moment, just kind of thanking me for just being so transparent.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you for your story. Reed, tell us your story and your journey and how all of this came to be and how you end up being such a godsend, not just to this family, but really to so many families. But yeah, tell us your story because people are saying, "Well, you're a barber. What does that have to do with helping people manage disabilities and special needs?" So let's hear from you.
Well, it just kind of comes kind of natural for me to cut because I don't really judge anyone or I mean kids are kids to me in my sense. So I just feel like besides all of that, I mean we're supposed to treat each other good and equal out here. So I mean it's just natural. It's nothing like that I'm doing. I love kids on top of that. And Jackson, I kind of took to him a long time ago. So it was just like, he's kind of like family now. It's like we done built this relationship over time. And now other parents are starting to see that and they bring their kids and I treat them good as well. So I mean, I love kids. I always love cutting kids though. Like I started out cutting kids' hair. And I always seen that barbers just didn't like cutting kids. If they would even walk in the shop, not even crying or anything, barbers always turn you around. Oh, I don't want to cut him. He too young, and saying all kind of stuff like that. And parents start feeling uncomfortable. So when I was in other shops, I paid attention to that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not about to be like none of these barbers out here because I felt like, for one, that's kind of like disrespectful and rude. And it's like, we're all human. So I just tapped into that side of things and I just figured I would try to make a change.
Absolutely, man. I'm applauding you. I mean, I know so many applauding your work, your heart, your passion, and we hear it and see it. And of course, someone might ask, do you have any special training in disability awareness and services? And what would be your response to that? Were you trained in this? Um,
And look, I'm out here doing God's work. And that's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So it's like you gotta love what you're doing. And I love what I do. I put my all into cutting hair.
wow. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. And my friends, I hope you've heard and I wanted to highlight, before we move to our next question, I just want to highlight a few things that Dr. LaQuista has said and Ree has said as it relates to autism. You've heard Dr. LaQuista mention this, but autism is considered on a spectrum. And what that simply means is that each child that's diagnosed with autism, each child will express and experience differently. So no two children, and I love what Ree said that she treats everyone just individually and loves everyone and gives everyone the respect. But we want to highlight that autism is a spectrum. No two children, no two person will respond the same. They won't express the same, whether it's verbally, whether as it relates to their senses, how they communicate, their social experience, right? It will all be different. So we want you to know that. I love what one of the individuals that we interviewed for our 30 minutes in our own voice session said. His name is Master Cole, Bronson Cole. And he said this, and I love it. And I always quote it. He said, If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Man, that's amazing, right? We want people to know that each person will respond differently. Again, whether it's verbally, non-verbally, whether it's relating to their senses, visual cues, sensory cues, how they socialize, how they relate. So keep that in mind. And then I also wanted to highlight something that you said, Dr. LaQuista, is the importance of advocacy, right? We want to remind people, advocate for your family, advocate for your loved ones, advocate for yourself. Become the biggest advocate that you can for yourself and for your loved ones. And I love that, Ree, you're doing that work, right? You're more than just a barber. You are an advocate. You've become a voice just because of your passion, right? For those who are managing and journeying with disabilities. Let me ask this question. What would you say to someone or a loved one who's managing disabilities and special needs? What would you say? And Ree, I'll start with you if you don't mind. What would you say to a family member, a loved one, like you did for LaQuista and Dr. LaQuista and Jackson? What would you say to them?
When they come in, I greet everyone the same, but I just pay attention to the child to see like what they don't like, how they're moving. I pay close attention to the actual individual. Then that's how I know how to carry on or start cutting, or how to make them feel comfortable, because I already know when they come to the shop they're nervous.
Wow.
So I just treat everybody equal, because, and just like you said, each child is different. So that's why I know when they arrive and when they come to the shop, I know, okay, let me pay attention to what this child is doing, what they like, what kind of toy they have in their hand, or if what they're watching on the tablet, or what they're looking at on the phone. I'm tapping into all of that as soon as they come in the shop.
Oh, great, great.
Just have to have patience, though.
Good. Wow, I love that, right? Great advice, Ree, on that is tapping into the person, to the individual, right? What are their needs? How are they wired, so to speak? I love that, because again, each person will respond and express differently. Dr. LaQuista, what would you say to that? How do you encourage? And I know this is the work that you do with your lived experience, and we'll talk a little bit about your work as well with other moms. But what would you say?
Yeah. So I always tell parents that their child deserves to take up space, no matter what that looks like, and not feel pressured by society for your child to act a certain way. A lot of people mask, and when I say mask, they kind of hide who they are to try to fit in. And I'm gonna jump on this what Ree was saying, because she be trying to be a little modest, but I still get anxiety at times when I go to the shop with Jackson, because I value people's time. Like, her shop is so amazing. It's like a luxury shop. It's not like your typical barber shop. Like, when you go into there, you feel like, okay, this is VIP treatment. It's private, so you are the only customer in there. It's just like you have to see it. It's really nice, and she is so supportive and just affirming that, hey, it's gonna be okay. I have it. I got this. Just have a seat, and that's exactly what I did. As someone who is an advocate in this space, and I do this work all the time, I still need to be affirmed and to be told that it's going to be okay, because I'm human. I'm a mom with all of these things kind of going on, and maybe I'm having a bad day, but finding your community, finding that support is going to be so important, because everybody's journey is different, but we all have like similarities. We all have been through some things. And, if my story as a mom can help you not experience some of the traumatic stuff that we have gone through as a family, like, I want to share that. I want to give you that advice. I want to kind of bring you in. And, like how you mentioned before about being an advocate, you will be forced to be an advocate at some point in time when you have a child who has a special need or a disability. It's just the nature of how our society is structured. It's not for anything outside of that. And so you do have to have a voice and speak up for your child. But I also want to encourage parents as well, speak up for yourself, because the mental health of caregivers and parents of special needs children, it is declining. It, like anxiety, depression, there's financial strain, there's so much that we carry and we deal with, and you have to take care of yourself as well.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for speaking to that, because that was going to be my next question about the importance of I mean, you're right on it, right? Talking to people about their mental health and their own mental health journey, particularly as a caregiver, right? You're always pouring out and giving. So we want to remind you of the importance of that, right? Taking care of yourself. We draw from what they do when we go on the airplane and they tell us the safety features, and they talk to us about in the event that there's turbulence or something else should happen. They say something like this, that a mask will fall from the ceiling, right? But they say this: before, if you're traveling with a minor or a child, make sure you put on your own mask first, right, before helping someone else. So we want to say that to parents, to loved ones, to caregivers, to organizations. Make sure you are taking care of yourself. Anything else you want to say on that, Ree, about the importance of mental health? You see this work a lot, not just with those with disability and special needs, but the truth is, and I know this from going to the barber shop, that you all become our therapists, and that's true. We tell you stuff that sometimes we don't tell anybody else. So you all are doing the job of what Dr. LaQuista and I do as behavioral health specialists and therapists and clinicians. But tell us about the importance about taking care of your mental health. Especially you see that stuff a lot in your barbershop. So can you speak to that?
Okay, you know the saying, if you're not right with yourself, you can't be right for nobody else. I spend a lot of time getting myself together all the time, like mentally, so I can be good for everyone else. That's where a lot of it comes from. That's the start. It starts with me and within. So I'm heavy on self-love and self-improvement and stuff like that. Like I'll be like, okay, how was your day today? Just to see how it was, and if they had a bad day, I'll try to give them advice or suggest different things that they should do. And then I'll use myself as an example, like, yeah, bro, I have to do this and this and this. And then he'd be like, you know what? Maybe I should try that, different things like that. And we kind of like build a relationship and, help each other. Cause I feel like all my clients, like we're all like family at this point. Cause I've been cutting a lot of my clients for a long time. And I just try to suggest different things. And the main thing you need to do is pray. And everything else will fall in place.
I like what you said, making sure we take care of ourselves and getting ourselves right. Right. So, my friends, I trust that you've been inspired by this, hearing the story of Dr. LaQuista and Ree being such an amazing source of support and help. And I just want to highlight just a few things as we wrap up our time. I want to circle back to what you said earlier, Dr. LaQuista, and the importance of early intervention. So someone might be watching and you're seeing some signs and symptoms. Maybe you have loved ones, family members, maybe people that you're in community with, right? We want to remind you that early intervention is the key. Right? The early diagnosis really has shown to help in the journey in this experience. So if you're seeing signs and symptoms, maybe some of what Dr. LaQuista has mentioned, please, we encourage you to reach out to your primary care provider, have them do an assessment. We do know that Most symptoms will show up prior to the age of 2 or 3. That's when we're seeing those symptoms. Of course, in some, the diagnosis has come later, but typically, we do know from a clinical experience that you'll begin to see those symptoms and those signs. We also see, Dr. LaQuista, and you'll help me with this, that typically those signs are a little bit more recognizable in males. Um, uh, More so than females. And the reason for that is, of course, males are typically more active, more verbal. They're jumping off of things. So if they're not meeting those developmental milestones, that's an insight to maybe there's something going on that you need to get some help with. Dr. LaQuista, you want to say something to that as we begin to wrap up?
Yeah, I cannot express like the importance of early intervention enough. Jackson started when he was like 2.5, and because of his autism diagnoses, he was able to start pre-K on his third birthday. So he did a couple years of pre-K, and even though he wasn't where the other students were, he was able to get those services in school, but he had a head start on his services. So again, we had like a speech therapist coming to the house. They had started working on ABA, which, I know there's some controversy with ABA therapy, but whatever it is that is going to work for you and your family, like do your own research. Don't let any of the information out there scare you. The only scary part is when you're not knowledgeable of things. So you have to do your research, asking people who you know and trust. And still, what worked for Jackson may not work for your child. But paying attention to those signs, and just, you being the voice for your child who may not have the voice, who may not have the language, even if they're verbal or non speaking. You have to know your child, and you know your child best. So, advocate, 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 I'm going to say, at every step of the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. As we begin to wrap up, how can people reach out to you, Dr. LaQuista? We also want to mention about your work. If you could talk to us about your work with Awesome Mom Society. So, how can people reach out to you? And the same for you, Ree. How can people reach out to you? So, Ree, let's start with you on that. Where can we get a hold of you if we're in the area? How can we connect with you?
I have an app. It's called The Cut. You could download the app and then put in Re the Barber and it'll pop right up.
Good, excellent. So we'll make sure we get that from you, and that will come on the screen. We're so grateful for the work that you're doing. You are absolutely a godsend. Dr. LaQuista, where can people reach out to you? Your advocacy work, your work with moms, your therapy work. I mean, you are just absolutely such an inspiration and amazing. How can we connect with you?
Yeah, thank you. So, I'm usually putting out information about autism on my social channels. So everything is at LaQuista Irina, so my first and last name. Awesome Mom Society is a membership that I founded based off of the feedback I got after this video. And you can go to awesomemomsociety.com, and awesome is spelled AUSOME. So if you are an autism mom, you understand the uniqueness of the spelling. So it's awesomemomsociety.com. I'll be posting more blogs there, and you can find out about the membership, where I basically just help moms raising autistic children start to prioritize like their own self-care so that they can be able to advocate for their child and also be able to build those strong bonds and connection with their child as they navigate this journey.
Thank you all so much for all that you're doing. We certainly applaud you, and we don't use that word lightly. Applauding, right? We applaud your heart, your story, your journey. And we've got your back in terms of supporting you and letting you know you're absolutely awesome and God sent. Well, my friends, trust that you've been inspired, you've been informed by this. Dr. LaQuista and Ree, I felt like a fitting way to close this session is to share the video clip that went viral of Ree cutting Jackson's hair. So we're going to show that at the end of this session. So make sure, my friends, you stay tuned for that. We also want to remind you, for more resources about special needs and mental health, I invite you to visit our website, C3 in This Together. Also, if you are impacted by this video, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share this video, comment, and let us know how you've been impacted by this. Again, we want to remind you, make sure you also subscribe to the Awesome Mom Society, great work that Dr. LaQuista is doing to come alongside others who are in this journey. Thank you again for joining us for our series, and we hope to see you next time for 30 minutes in our own voice. Stay tuned to the video at the end. And again, let us know how you've been impacted so that together we can bring hope to each other. Take care, my friends.
Only if we don't be good, they don't come. They can feel if we're not being good, you know?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. All right, come on. We gotta stay away. We gotta stay away. Let's stay right here. We gotta stay away. Oh, let me see. Let's stay. We gotta stay still. We don't stay still. They're coming. Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. Okay, hold on. Protect Mario. Protect Mario.
Wait, what's that crack?
Oh, man. Hold on. 'Cause they got over there. They got over there. That's why we gotta be still. Okay? They went over there. Okay?
The crack there?
Yeah, because they came over there. They came over there, okay? Hold on. Pretend Mario. Pretend Mario.